In this lesson, we're going to be talking about JavaScript functions and what you can do with JavaScript functions. So functions are a self-contained piece of code. And the good thing about functions is actually they're going to be reusable. So you could use them over and over and over again, and simply by calling out to the function. So what we're going to do is simply create a function. And the way you create a function, so you just type function and give it a name. So I'm just going to call it my function. And here we have the ability to actually pass values to the function. So I'm just going to put an A there for now. Most of the time you might not see anything within there. So this is just a way to pass values through, and we're actually not going to be using this initially. So functions are a piece of code that runs here. So we could do something like console log, and we're going to use that console log again, and hello. And this is all that our function is going to do. Maybe we can also have a increment there. So every time we call out to that function, it's going to write out to the console, and it's going to do hello. And I'm going to do a plus A. So every time we call my function, so instead of what we had before where we kept calling out to the console log, I can simply do my function. And I'm going to actually add that a bunch of times here within the code, and go back out, refresh the browser, open up our console, and we see that we're actually calling it out a bunch of times. Oops, something went wrong there. Because we had called A here. So that's one of the things that we're going to look at as well. So the reason that didn't work is because it was expecting a value and is assigning a value to A, and then we were incrementing A. So we would have to have, we could pass through a number here, and it would actually increment A. So show you how that works next. We're just going to refresh that. So get that working first. So now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and again, to illustrate what's happening here with the code, the browser's rendering out the JavaScript. It hits variable, it sees A is 0, so it remembers that within the browser. Then it hits this my function, and it understands that this is a declared function. And this is, again, going back to the previous lesson, why we have to actually declare variables and values, because JavaScript has to know that A is a variable because of the way that it's running functions. All we have to do is type in that function name, and this is being able to pass through into the function. So we can reuse it over and over again, and we can also use it here within the JavaScript. So we can do my function, and here we can also pass over that object if we wanted to. So just leaving it like that is optional. So now every time we click this button, we should see that hello, that function is being called and it's being reused. So functions are great for reusable code. And as well, you can call them at any time. So over here is, so we've declared A as a value, and we talked about being able to pass over this value into the function. Because with the function itself, as we saw earlier, where we're getting an error when we reused A over here, or if we have a value of A incrementing, this is a global A. So whenever a variable is declared outside of the function, it's globally accessible. Meaning that, as we saw in the example, that A is 0, and even within that function, we see that this is what the value of A is. So if we were to do something like variable B equals hello, and we console log out B, and then we also console log out B over here. So first of all, do you think this is going to work? So logically, we're just going to look at how this is rendering out. The browser hits this JavaScript file. It's going to start reading through it. It's going to say a equals 0. It's going to run the my function. And in my function, we're declaring b has a value of hello, and a increments there. So all of this stuff, actually, we could probably even get rid of that to avoid confusion. So over here, we've got this console log of b, and it's actually, it's not declared, but in order, so the function runs this, and we're declaring b within the function. So do you think that we're actually going to see that output of b over here? And we should just differentiate this as well. So do you think that this console log b is going to actually be able to return hello? And now we'll go out and we'll just check and see what happens. And as you can see, whenever this page loads, we get that b is not defined because b is not a global value. It's only usable within the function. So that's why when the function's calling b, we're able to access and use it, but outside we're not able, there is no b value. And so with functions, we can also pass values. So I can use something like c, and I can pass over this value of c So now when I call my function, I'm actually going to pass this value of c into the function, and I'm going to output it within the console log. So going back out here, refreshing it. When the page loads, the function's going to run, and we see within the function hello. So we're able to access that value within the function, and we're able to pass over different values. You can have any number of values. So maybe we could do it like this, comma b, comma c, and with string values, you got to always quote them. Otherwise, it's going to take it as a variable, and this again goes back to why we have to have variables declared, because if I do something like this, it's going to think that there's a variable called hello. It's not going to be able to find that, and it's going to produce an error. So that's why we have variables that get declared, and we have to quote out string values that aren't variables. So we could pass through a variable in this fashion if we wanted to, but if it's an actual separate string, a brand new string, we pass it through within this format. So I'm going to just add in some, so we can actually see some additional code. And these pluses are just concatenating the content, and it's just adding a bunch of spaces here. And again, going back to that initial point, why we can't start a variable with a number, because as you can see here, we don't have to quote out numeric values. It's only going to be for string values that we have to quote that out. So over here, we're going to be passing hello, 10, and 100, and now we're going to write out these values, but because within the function we're redeclaring hello, so maybe we'll do hello 2. What do you think this output is going to be? Is it going to be within a function? It's going to be a, so a would equal hello, b would equal 10 over here, but then it would be overwritten by a new declaration of b within it. So it would be hello, hello 2, and 100, or would it be hello, 10, 100? What do you think the output is going to say when I run this function? And we see that, in fact, that first b gets overwritten by the second b, and we've got an answer of hello, hello 2, and 100. So one other thing you can do with functions, you can return values. So you can do calculations with functions. And we're going to be getting into that in the upcoming lesson.